Today I wanted to do an altcoin update because I'm really starting to see a lot of fear kind of perpetuate through the market. So I wanted to just give a quick update of my thoughts, what we're seeing right now, some of the data, and also looking at what could be coming next for altcoins, because I do think that it's starting to get a little bit sketchy. And I think this is primarily because we've seen a relatively punishing sell-off at a point in time that tends to indicate getting close to the end of the 4-year cycle. And so I do think that there are a lot of people who are legitimately concerned that this cycle could be over and we're going to see the typical 70-80% pullbacks that we see at the end of a crypto cycle. Now again, there's no way to know this for sure, so I'm not telling you that I have a crystal ball or I know exactly what's going to happen, but I want to go through some of the data that we're seeing and lay out some of the options as it seems to me to make the most sense, and then we can of course go from there. So let's go on ahead, we'll dive right on in. First off, taking a look at the crypto bubbles, because we can see yet another red day in the market here. This is kind of the second or third day in a row that we have seen a sell-off after a kind of a little bit of a bounce following that ridiculous move to the downside from the liquidations. We can see on the week still massively red all over, basically, a couple of greens here and there, but the majority of the market is down, and it's down bad for sure. So we can also start to see this because the market has moved in and kind of sustained this fear level over the past several days. To be completely honest with you, given that the direction that we're going and kind of how things could be looking, it would not surprise me if we did see falling back into this extreme fear level, just because of kind of where things are at within the crypto market, how altcoins are starting to look, and a lot of this type of stuff. So of course, you need to be prepared for that. It could get worse before it gets better. It might get a lot worse, and it might take a couple years for it to get better. But at least in my opinion, I don't really think that's the case. I think this is just going to be another really good buying opportunity. Now, of course, you need to make your own decisions there, but I personally have been buying several different things because I do think that there is the opportunity still to come here. Now, let's take a look at Bitcoin, because as I understand it, or as I believe, I do think that all roads lead through Bitcoin. Altcoins cannot really sustain a run. We've seen this several times. We'll look at it here in a second, but altcoins really cannot sustain a run if Bitcoin cannot hold its strength and really even continue to rise. So the first thing that we need to see before anything else is we do need to see Bitcoin start to turn around here. Now, if we look at the Bollinger Bands, you will see we are getting close to the bottom of the Bollinger Bands. And let me make a quick adjustment here so I could add in RSI. But RSI is another one that we're also starting to see it really start to weaken. So this isn't necessarily throwing off a really strong buying indicator on the daily quite yet, but it's getting close. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens next. We did just see kind of a recent dump down into this key level of support at the 107K range. We are at least currently starting to wick back up. So we'll have to see what happens here next. But generally, as we talked about several days ago, generally when we see these impulse moves down and we see these major wicks, it is not uncommon for us to come back and capture all of this liquidity. And we have basically done that at this point. So from that perspective, I do think that potentially a bottom could be in, because we have come back and cleared the liquidity here. But again, you just never know. This could be kind of just an indication for a further move to the downside. What we will be looking for specifically is, can we hold this bottom here? If not, we continue to break. We might be looking lower because we currently do have a structure of lower highs, and then we just would be looking for that lower low. So we'll have to see, but overall, all roads to altcoins lead through Bitcoin. If we see Bitcoin continue to show weakness and continue to sell off, expect your altcoins to get crushed. That's just how it is. I wish it were different, but that's just how it is. So overall, we are trying to use, given that we saw this little bit of an impulse move up, I actually have been taking some short trades. You can see here on Weex, I have a little bit of a short trade. I've already locked some profit. We did start to kind of move back up. So this profit is coming down a little bit. But that's why you lock profit, because you never know exactly how low it's going to go. I did look for kind of a full recapture of this move on Solana. We might still see it, but at least so far we are looking to be bouncing a little bit. But that, again, as I mentioned, is why you do lock some profit. The other thing I will show you is I've been working through Bitcoin as well. I've been DCAing on the way down. You will see I have a couple that are actually pretty decently in the red right now, but I have also done a Bitcoin short as we've kind of come down and we've been looking for this impulse move to recapture. Again, we don't know exactly how low it can go, but we have been waiting for that to recapture. So I have been pulling a short. You can see here, profit locked right now. And then I have been DCAing on the way down. This one currently in the green because this was the most recent DCA. Again, who knows for sure how high or how low this will go, but that is why you DCA on the way down. At least in my opinion, that is my strategy. You can kind of make your own decisions. But if you are interested, of course, I do have the links in the description below to Weex, BTCC, and BloFin. As you can see, I currently do use Weex, but also BTCC does have the best referral bonus with that 10% bonus on first-time deposits. It's guaranteed. It's a really good deal. I personally, as you can see, have been spending a lot of money going and buying various things right now because that's just how you do it, right? Buy when the market is fearful, which we are fearful, and then sell when it's greedy, which we were at, even just a little while back. So that is the thing that I have been doing. It's been working out generally so far, so we'll see how it continues to go. But I want to go shift and take a more close look at the altcoin market because, as I have mentioned, Bitcoin, all roads lead through Bitcoin. But as it relates to the alt market specifically, we are at actually a critical juncture right now. And that critical juncture is kind of this $1 trillion level. We have wicked down below, again, just very, very slightly, and currently have come back up. But we do need to see this level hold, in my opinion. Of course, we can go a little bit lower. We have seen kind of some slight wicks down into like the 950. We probably could even get into like the 920 billion range without being too concerned. But once we start to fall off this level, we do start to get back into some of this retracement territory that we would really like to be holding above. Now, again, as I have mentioned, if we do hold this level, you can see we are actually still above the previous highs that we had kind of seen before making this next move to the upside. So if we do hold this level, I still think things look pretty good for altcoins, even though they're not looking or feeling particularly good right now. It still, from a structural perspective, looks good. We also, that's why I say even to the 950 billion level, we still look okay because we will be holding above the previous highs that we were seeing even back as far as May. Now, if we do break below that, of course, the structure has broken. The next thing we'd probably be looking for is some support being found between maybe like the 850 billion level, maybe even coming down to like the 750 billion level, and even as low as 660. If we drop below 660 billion, I would say we have a relatively fair shot that the bull market is over and that we will see a much, much larger pullback for altcoins. Now, of course, this is almost 40% down from here. So I'm not saying that, this is going to be a super clear indicator, but that is always a possibility. Altcoins are very, very volatile. And I can't tell you at the top that this is when it's over. We don't know for sure. We saw that, maybe this was the top. It wasn't in terms of kind of the larger macro perspective, but we did, obviously see a sustained pullback over a very long period of time before we saw prices get back up to that level again. So you just have to be very careful, but nobody really does know for sure. For me, I am looking at this kind of, 1 trillion in the 950 billion range. If we see that break below, I would expect that we are probably below there for an extended period of time. It may not mean that the bull market is over, but it may mean that it might be delayed for 3, 6, maybe even 9 months. Who knows for sure? Now, the next thing that I want to take a look at, though, is if you're catching on to what I'm seeing here, is there has been a decent bit of bearish sentiment. There's been a decent bit of bearish price action. There's been a lot of bearishness generally going on here, which can, of course, be a little bit stressful, and it can start to kind of shake the faith of people who were expecting some sort of alt season, particularly now that this is aligning with what is called the end of the bull market for people who believe in the 4-year cycle. Now, this, in my opinion, is all completely orchestrated. Price does tend to follow, or narrative does tend to follow price. And what an easier narrative to kind of manipulate price around than the end of the bull market, while that may not necessarily be the case. Now, of course, it might be the case as well. We really just don't know for sure. So again, what I'm looking for is kind of how Bitcoin holds up. If we see Bitcoin hold up, then I am generally more confident. And one of the reasons why I think we might see Bitcoin and even altcoins hold up at these key levels is because of what we're seeing on the liquidation map. Now, as you know, I look at the liquidation maps quite frequently on the channel here, and they've worked with very, very good success in my opinion. And so this is what we will continue to go back to. Now, of course, you can see on the 1 day, we do have about $3.78 billion to the upside that would be liquidated if we came back to kind of all-time high or near all-time high levels that we have seen even as near as just like a week or two ago, which is really quite crazy to think about. Actually, it's probably more like 2 to 3 weeks, but you get the point. We still do have a little bit of downside liquidity, but what you will notice, and it's becoming quite clear, is that the buyers are really getting exhausted. There's really very few people who are continuing to put their longs in because price has just continued to go down. And so the bullish sentiment is very depressed, and there's not really much buying action going on, where even after that first dip, we did see people say, oh yeah, I'm jumping in, this is a momentary dip, it's going to come right back up. And it did for a minute, but then we have seen price come right back down and liquidate all of those bulls that jumped in right after that initial pullback. We could potentially see a move down into like the 105, 106,000 range, as that would liquidate yet another $1 billion. If we see that, I do think that that would really kind of damage bullish sentiment and could really even cause this chart to go even more skewed than it is currently. We also can see though on the 7-day, we're seeing something very similar. Again, some liquidity remains down into the 105,000 range, about $1.5 billion, but we can see on the 7-day almost over, I guess, $14 billion to be liquidated. Again, even if we don't reach current or previous all-time highs, there is an insane amount of liquidity, even almost, or I guess over $1 billion, even just getting to 110,000. So it is looking very, very skewed. Like shorts are in control. I do think we will see the market makers really start to push this back up because of this is how it always goes, right? I mean, look back, I've been tracking this for well over a year at this point in the channel. This is very, very consistent, and we've seen this happen time and time again. Even when people think it is just completely unlikely to happen, it does happen. So I would say pay extra close attention here. And again, as you know, if you have been following, you know that we look for confluence between all three. And what do you see here? Not only do we see confluence, we see extreme confluence, meaning all of these are massively, massively skewed towards liquidating shorts to the upside. Here we can see on the 30-day, almost $17 billion to be liquidated. Again, not even returning to previous all-time highs, coming short of that. So it is very, very clear that the market has gotten incredibly bearish, and that, in my opinion, it stands to reason we do see a continued push to the upside here, if nothing else than to liquidate all of these people. So in my opinion, even if the bear or the bull market is over, it would stand to reason that we at least see another push back to the upside. We see things clear out before we see a move back to the downside. Generally, it is highly unlikely that we see these types of moves be predicted by the market, right? I mean, that's kind of the main reason why I don't think that the bull market is over, because so many people are calling for it. If everybody knew that the bull market was over, then like why, usually that's not the point of Max Pain, and that's not the direction of Max Pain if everybody is thinking something's going to happen. So that is why, particularly looking at the liquidation map, I am confident we see a move to the upside sooner rather than later, because of just how lopsided these liquidation charts are. Now, again, as I have mentioned, I do still think we can see a clear down to the 105, 106,000 range on Bitcoin, but I do think that will, after that happens, that will send us pushing back up to new highs, or at least around old highs. Maybe we see something similar to a double top like we saw back in the November, December, January timeframe. Anything is possible, of course. I do not know what's going to happen, but I do try to look at the data, analyze what the data is saying, and nothing, at least as of right now, looks fundamentally broken and like we might see an end to the altcoin season. To the bull market. Altcoin season after that, of course, is a whole different beast. As I mentioned, we do need to see Bitcoin continue to run, very, very likely to new all-time highs, and perhaps even well above that. And in addition to that, we do need to see Ethereum also continue to run to all-time highs, hold above it, and very, very likely we need to see it break and hold well above 5,000 if we are going to see a sustained alt season. So again, right now, I am not confident that alt season is close, but I am confident that alt season is still possible. Now, of course, I could be right, I could be wrong. Nobody knows for sure. I have mysteriously misplaced my crystal ball. So if any of you find it, please do let me know in the comment section below. But also, thank you all so much for tuning in. Hopefully you did find the information in this video useful. If you did, of course, you know what to do. It does, of course, really help the channel out. And I would love to hear any comments that you have. Of course, naturally, if you do find my crystal ball, please note that in the comments. But also anything else that you may have. Do you think the market's over, the bull market's over? Do you think that we're going to have another run up? All of this type of stuff I do love to hear, and I love to see and read those comments. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.